Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, may I have your attention, please? Are you ready to engage in a mind-blowing experience and hear talks about life, technology, entertainment, and business? The next episode of Hipther Talks starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi everyone, Zoltan here. We're back again with the Hipther Talks. Today it's going to be very different because we have a world champion and a European champion in duathlon here. And wait, she's also vegan, which we are very, very fond of. So I have here today Lisa Gawthorne. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly because I'm wearing bracelets, so it's pretty crazy to talk these days. So hi Lisa, it's nice to meet you, nice to see you.
Hi, yes, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on the show.
All right, Lisa, so before we dive into the questions, just give a short introduction about yourself. We know that you're also a business owner besides being a vegan athlete, so
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've been vegan for 20 years, which I think is always a nice place to start. I've been vegan for the animals and always kind of been led by that passion in life. So, yes, I have a vegan business in the UK called Bravura Foods, and we supply all the major supermarkets and high street chains with quite a collection of different sort of vegan snack products and confectionery. So that's one side of kind of like the entrepreneurial hat that I wear. The other side is that I'm also a writer for many vegan magazines in the UK and quite a regular contributor, as well as being the author of a vegan health and fitness book called Gone in 60 Minutes, and also a vegan health resource called Vegan Deck. And then aside from that, my other hat that I wear is the sports hat, where I am a relatively successful vegan athlete. My history has always been really about running, but following injury in 2016, that kind of pushed me into duathlon. And then I've just been doing duathlons now for the last 7 years, fallen in love with them, and they seem to work really well with me and work well with my training regime. So it's definitely kind of like my niche that I like competing in.
All right, so my first question would be, why not triathlon as well?
Everybody likes to ask me this question, and I am the worst swimmer. I literally am a really weak swimmer. I've never really liked the water, if I'm being honest. Even like when I'm on holidays and stuff, you won't find me in the sea. You might find me in the pool in the shallow ends. But generally, I've never really been a water baby at all. I'm much more comfortable on land. And because I am quite I'm quite, for my age group, I'm quite high up in the UK for running, so it makes sense for me to really pass it at home as an advantage. Having 2 runs in multi-sport is much better for me than having a run and a swim, so I can really kind of, kind of take the advantage from that.
Yeah, like they say in the memes that if you want to suck at multiple sports, you should try duathlon or triathlon.
Certainly.
All right, so first, congratulations on your recent victories in the European and World Duathlon Championship. I know that's such a huge deal because I've seen your rankings on the World Triathlon, and it took a couple of years for you to get there, and I'm really happy for you, and I hope that you can go even further. And so could you tell our audience a bit about your athletic career and how you got started into duathlon?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned it briefly earlier, but really I've always ran since probably about 2001, 2002, when I was into my final years of university. I started running as pretty much anxiety relief, to be honest with you, and stress relief. So obviously training for exams and revising for exams, it's always nice to have an outlet. And for me, that was running. So I only kind of started really doing it seriously around about the early 2000s. And then it was 2007 that I came third in a relatively big race, and I was approached to say, well, why don't you kind of join a club? So in 2007, I joined a club at Liverpool Pembroke Sefton, and I've been running for them with second claim to vegan runners in the UK now for multiple years, mainly focusing on sort of 5K and 10Ks, but obviously doing some cross-country stuff over the years. And I've done relatively well over those distances. Both of my PBs for 5K and 10K have happened within the last 6 months, which is great. Seem to be getting faster and faster all the time. But in 2016, I suffered a knee injury that saw me have to have an operation. It was only a minor operation, an arthroscopy, but there was a 6-month rehab program from that arthroscopy that saw me have a lot of rehab on the bike. And previous to that, I'd had the bike incorporated in general training, but more of a softer kind of training. So I'd go on my mountain bike at the weekends. Nothing was very structured. So because the surgeon told me that I'd need to do quite a lot of rehab on the bike, I bought a watt bike. And then I just absolutely fell in love with the whole data feedback I was getting from the watt bike and being able to track my progress. And then obviously throughout my rehab, it kind of started to make me think, is there a sport out there that combines these two loves, running and cycling? And that just happened to be duathlon. So I entered my first duathlon the year after that surgery in 2016, I think it was, or 2017, and I was fortunate enough to qualify for the European Championships, which back then was in Soria, and also the World Championships, which was in Canada. And just getting onto that whole team, GB, age group kind of multi-sport community really made it quite addictive for me, and I just absolutely loved it. And I knew that that's where I wanted to focus my efforts over the coming years. So I've just been going to the Worlds and going to the Europeans and digging deep and training hard for the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, my first ever European competition, I placed 16th in Europe, just to put that in perspective, and that was back in 2017, I think. And I've just been plugging away, sort of going from 16th to 12th to 10th, and I've been literally just going up every few years and changing things with coaching and putting more effort into longer runs and longer bike sessions to really up my endurance. And it's really paid off. And obviously, I've had the last 12 months have just been explosive. In Romania last year, getting the bronze medal, which was the first international podium. And then obviously in the last 6 weeks, it's been a frenetic 6 weeks. So obviously doing the Europeans over in Italy and the Worlds over in Ibiza, and obviously coming back champion with the gold medal from both of them has just blown my mind. And I'm still on cloud 9 from it. It doesn't seem real.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story. Actually, when my first duathlon, I took place in the European Championship and I finished 6th. But we were 6th in the category because it was the pandemic. So it was very, very close, and there were just a few athletes there. But yeah, so my first debut was, I finished 6th in a European Duathlon Championship. That was great.
Fantastic.
So wow, and yeah, we know that you're an advocate for veganism, not just a vegan. You're an advocate for it, and congratulations for your company and everything, because that's very hard to juggle all that things together, running a business and doing such training, because this is not just ordinary training.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, could you tell us why you decided to adopt a vegan lifestyle, and how it has impacted your athletic performance, or you were a vegan before you started doing more athletic stuff?
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually, I went vegetarian first at the very delicate young age of 6. And that was brought about because a leaflet came through our front door about battery farming and about cow farming and all those kind of things. And I just challenged my parents on it because it was actually quite an informative cartoon style leaflet. So it really appealed to me as a child. And it was the first time I made that connection. And I actually asked my parents, is this really true? Is that what we do? We eat animals kind of thing. And it was a real shock to me. It was really shocking even at age 6, because I was always very, very connected to animals and very sentimental, had pets around the home. And my parents were quite honest and open with me and said, well, yeah, that's basically what we do. And I just thought, well, it's not what I'm going to be doing. It doesn't sit happy with me at all. So I protested against that and basically just said to my parents, if you put any meat or any fish or anything that was once living on my plate, I won't be eating it. And they thought, well, come on, she's 6 years old. She won't know the difference. And maybe it's a fad and maybe she'll forget about it next week. But after a few awkward meal times of them realising I wasn't going to eat it, they then had to go out and do some research to see what I could actually eat on the market. So they were very supportive in that respect. And it was quite difficult, back in sort of 1987, there wasn't a lot of things on the market. So I kind of survived on things like vegetable fingers and a couple of the vegetable bean burgers that were out, and it was quite limited. There was, a few things, but certainly not the plethora of products that are out there today. So I always wanted to have that kind of standpoint in life, and I'd always had that very strong allegiance to animals. And it was really over time that I just started to eliminate over the years certain elements of dairy. So I never ate cheese and I never really ate eggs. They were mainly occasionally in products as a byproduct or as an ingredient. So I wasn't dairy heavy, but it came to just round about university time when I thought, you know what, there's enough products on the market now. I think I can make this work. It's easy enough to take out milk. It's easy enough to take out butter. And again, I wasn't a massive consumer of dairy anyway. So it was 2003 that I actually decided I definitely want to do this. I want to strip everything out. And not just in the whole sense, but in any ingredients sense at all. So, fully vegan from 2003 onwards. And what I did notice is the change from vegetarian to veganism for me was quite phenomenal. So some things that weren't necessarily related to athletics, but certainly helped us in terms of competence. My skin health really saw improvements. So I've always suffered with acne and eczema and all sorts of skin conditions like that from very early stage in life. And pretty much all of that disappeared after I took dairy out of my diet, and I thought that was very interesting. But I also just felt less sluggish. And because I was then sort of focusing on getting more phytonutrients in my diet and really getting more vegetables, legumes, pulses, and searching for those meat alternatives, by default, I was getting much more healthy, wholesome foods in my diet, which obviously has started to impact and has improved my endurance, definitely improved my speed, because every single year I get older, it's meant to go backwards, you're meant to get slower as you're getting older, and I continue to drive down all my time. So I know that it's helping impact on that. My recovery is really good as well. When I go see my physio, she says out of everyone that she has, and she has a lot of professionals on her books, she says I recover by far the quickest out of everyone on her books. And again, I put that down to the fact that the diet is so rich in those important phytonutrients. But a big one for me, I would say, was improved digestion as well, because a lot of people don't understand how much of your immune system actually is located in the gut. So I think it's 70%. And if you don't have a healthy gut as an athlete, it's detrimental to your performance, as is hydration and recovery and everything else. But the gut in particular, for me, has a strong vibe into how well you do. So I noticed that, number one, I was getting better sleep because my digestive system wasn't working hard overnight, having to process animal products. Waking up feeling much more refreshed, a much more healthier stomach and digestive system. And I think to go with that as well, I definitely got better mind clarity. And I think that you need that to go along with athletics, particularly if you want to succeed in placements and things like that, because the mind plays a big part of that, and mind strength plays a big part in athletics. So all those things combined together, I definitely think have made me into a much stronger athlete. And don't get me wrong, I've trained really hard. I've been training really hard with my coaches. I have very, very strong periodized plans that I do, and I know that plays a part in it as well. But recovery and diet, for me, are absolutely essential to success in athletics. And I always say to people that, in that respect, I honestly believe that vegan is my superpower in athletics.
Yeah, exactly. And so congratulations for that. My question would be, of course, the cliche question we get as vegans: where do you get your proteins from? But I will not ask this question. So how do you maintain a balanced diet as a vegan athlete? And what are some of your favorite foods to eat before and after the race? I'm curious about this, because maybe many people would like to switch to a vegan diet as athletes. And and a side note, I saw that you are also a fan of ASICs. So that's a sound mind in a sound body. So basically they can be Cook together.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm actually a qualified vegan nutritionist, so I know quite a lot about nutrition, and it's always been something that I've wanted to further my development in, particularly with regards to athletics as well, and seeing those condition responses. So I use an app called MyFitnessPal, which is an app that you can use each day, and I use that not particularly to track my calories because I'm not really a calorie counter, but more so to make sure that my macro nutrients are on point. So the fats versus the proteins versus the carbohydrates, because I play around with those, particularly with regards to when I'm in a heavy training phase and pre-race and post-race. So pre-racing and training, I will be getting a lot of oats in. Anything that's oat-based is in my cupboard. So everything from porridge to flapjacks and things like that, obviously all vegan. I tend to use quite heavily an oat-based bars. And also occasionally I will also make porridge out of quinoa as well, which is another good one. So I tend to have quite a high carbohydrate intake on the run up to a race, or if I'm in very high training periods that really requires that energy boost. And then after racing or after hard sessions or anything along those lines, where I've really kind of gone to the well, I try to make sure that the diet or whatever I'm eating at that point in time does have a good protein focus, just mainly to help on recovery. And that's not just for vegans, that's for everyone. That's the way that you should really be looking at it. So for that, what I will do is I'll mix up anything from tofu or seitan or tempeh. And because they're such versatile ingredients, I'll either make a curry with them or a cassoulet or a tagine, or throw them into a salad or make a stew with them. But I'll have them in that respect, and then mix that up with a lot of veggies. So it kind of follows that very obvious formula of carb heavy prior to racing and in hard training, to protein heavy after training, and when you're in recovery, to help the muscles repair any damage that's been done during the training.
All right. So any advice would you give to athletes who are considering adopting a vegan lifestyle and maybe are concerned about not getting enough protein or other nutrients?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is don't worry too much about the protein. Everyone thinks it's this horrendous big problem. And in actual fact, when I first started using MyFitnessPal, before I was even trying to focus on protein, I realized I was actually getting about 70 grams naturally per day without even trying. And I thought, well, hang on, that's actually well more than I need anyway for my weight.
Exactly.
So is there really a problem here? There actually isn't. And obviously that comes from many years of manipulation for the meat industry. So I would say don't worry too much about the protein, because number one, there's protein in pretty much everything you eat anyway. And by the time you throw in just a couple of things in there that you would have had originally, so you change your burgers over to tofu or you change your steak over to seitan, you're going to be meeting your daily requirements, if not doubling them anyway. So I'd say don't worry much about that. And if you're focusing on a balanced whole foods diet, it will come naturally. What I always say to people that chat to me about their kind of wants and needs of going vegan, I say don't try and do it just overnight, because I think that's too much of a shock. It puts too much pressure on yourself, and then what you're going to do is you're going to rush. You're not going to know what your substitute products are. You might substitute products with things that don't taste that good, because you have to give time to find your favorite things. So I always say phase it over a couple of months. Start in your first month and find all your favourite dairy alternatives. Find the best milk that works for you, the one that you like the taste of, the one that makes you feel good. Then move on to the butter, then move on to the cheese. Once you've got all that sorted, then move on to the meat alternatives and blah, blah, blah. Because there's so many products out there now, it's so easy. And I think a lot of people sometimes they rush, they go out there, they accidentally pick up things that aren't great, because as with any diet and as with any products out there, there are some bad products.
Exactly.
And then if that taints your view on it, it's going to make it harder for you to follow it in the longer term. So I would say a nice slow transition, tick everything off, make sure you get all your favourites, and then you're going to have a much better chance of succeeding with that in the longer term.
And I would like to add to this that you're not going to die. I actually go out when I do my long runs, 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers, without eating anything in the morning. So basically, I just go out with water and that's it. And I do not fuel myself with proteins or carbs just when I race, where I have to run faster or stuff like that. Otherwise, don't worry, you're not going to die if you become vegan and start doing much more physical activity. So now it's the time we switch to the tech side from the veganism, and from the and we do understand that you've been definitely using some technology, because most of the athletes nowadays are, and I really like tech. I actually own an augmented reality running glass, which is awesome for running and even for cycling. And could you tell us some of the innovative technologies that you've been using in your training or racing? And
yeah, absolutely. Well, I use my Garmin watch, which obviously links up to Garmin Connect, which is a fantastic app, and that gives you all your data reads out from absolutely everything from stride length to speeds to heart rates, etc. And for cycling, I obviously use the Watt Bike, which obviously comes with its own app and gives me some great data. If I'm outside and I'm not on the Watt Bike, I use the Giant Ride Link app to give me some data there. So I've got power pedals on my bike, and then I've got the computer that runs off the handlebars, and that tells me absolutely everything in terms of wattage and repetitions per minute and speed and everything like that. So they're probably the most used aspects, along with also my Fitness Pal, which I include in that, because getting data reads out on your nutrition is just as important as it is with your sports activities. And I'm quite a data demon, and probably like yourself, I love to live in the data and record everything and monitor it, and I have it in diaries so I understand, right, okay, so during that period, the reason why I was hitting my PBs is because I was doing A, B, C, and D, and I've got evidence to prove that. And I think we're very fortunate to live in times where we can plan our activities and underpin them on the data that's available to us. It makes it very easy for our coaches to understand where we are in our training regimes as well. And I think wearable technology is just the start. Did you just mention that you have the glasses that have the amazing? I've not tried them yet, and it's always been a want for me to look into them, because I think it absolutely looks great, and I think that that's something that's going to be massive in the future, because we're definitely moving into more wearable technology, and we have to look beyond the watch, and that's a big one for me.
Yeah, exactly. And since I was also watching these Ironman icons such as Blumenfeld and stuff like that, I saw that they've been using these chips for temperature tracking and some other chips that for their blood sugar. Yeah. So it's very crazy that you as a vegan athlete did not mention that, because I think those guys who are not vegan are more concerned about such stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I believe it or not, I have used one of those in a trial with Super Sapiens. So they sent me some, and I trialed it, and absolutely amazing, and very, very interesting, particularly for people who don't understand the functionality of the foods and what their foods are doing to their internals, etc. So all those kind of things, they do take up a lot of time, but those marginal gains you get from knowing that information can be the difference in winning and losing. So they can be kind of expensive, but if you want to go down that road and learn more, then it is certainly interesting to do that.
All right, so definitely technology is going to influence the sports world, and how do you think it will continue to impact on athletes as yourself and maybe some even beginners?
Yeah, I think first of all, we're going to see more accuracy, because I think when you look back in the last few years, some of the first generation watches and wearable stuff that came out hasn't been accurate at all. And I know a lot of watches in particular still require chest straps for the accuracy of the heart rate. I think you're generally going to see much more accuracy come across, whether that's in the glasses, whether that's in the bike monitors, whether it's in the wrist monitors. And I think that's really, really interesting as well, because obviously the more accuracy, the better you can plan your sessions. And I think we're probably just going to see some more innovation there and new ways of trying to wear that technology. As I say, the glasses, I think, are definitely something that's going to be interesting to me moving forward. Anything that stops me looking down at my watch every 5 minutes.
Exactly. That's the point of it.
Yeah, definitely wins, because in those times of you dipping your head down, again, people don't realise, but just little things like dipping your head down impacts your performance massively, because your head is a very heavy part of your body, and if you're not keeping that upright while you're running, that can impact on seconds, and seconds over every mile can end up being minutes in the longer race.
Exactly.
So I think that those kind of things that make it much more easier for us, where we just look into a pair of glasses and we see all the data, definitely gets my my applause, and is something that I'm really going to look into for the future.
All right. So finally, what are your goals for the future on your athletic career, and how do you plan to continue pushing your limits of what's possible in duathlon and maybe adding other sports?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm having a well-earned rest because it's been a very hard training regime. Basically, normally the European and the World Championships, you normally go about 6 months in between the two, and this year there was only 6 weeks between the two. So that has pushed me to a whole new level of pain, because obviously I've been training since November right through to May, basically. And in between that, having to do those two competitions so close together was very tough, because having to stay in your peak for such a long time, I really did have to go to new corners that I've never visited before. So because I'm very conscious of putting my body through that, and it's been a sustained amount of pain, what I want to do now is just let the body recover fully. Even though I don't feel necessarily 100% broken, I think it's very, very, very good to do for your mind as well. Make sure that everything is completely repaired and that I'm in a really good state to then start ramping up the summer season of running, because for the rest of this year, now that the international competitions are out of the way with duathlon, I'm going to be focusing on driving down my 5K. So my 5K PB at the moment is 18:06, I think. And my 10K, I only set a few weeks ago, is 38:02. So I want to go hopefully into the 37s for a 10K and into the 17s for a 5K. That's going to take at least sort of 8 to 12 weeks to try and pull that off. So that'll probably take me through to the back end of the summer, where I'll then transfer onto track, and I'll be chasing some distance PBs on the distances, probably from 1,500 metres, 1 mile, and 3,000 metres on the track as well. So it's going to be heavily run focused, but I'm not going to drop from the cycling training. The cycling's still going to be in there, but it's just not going to be as hard and as abrasive. It's going to be more as a supplementary cross training rather than a functional style method. And next year, I'm going to make the decision of whether I continue on the duathlon for a year, or whether I have a year out and look at doing European and World Masters for athletics, and really kind of focus on some track stuff, and maybe go and represent GB in the 5K and the 10K distances. So all of that, I'm not going to make a decision on probably until about Christmas time, when I can then see what 2024 looks like.
Yeah. So we wish you all the luck in the world with your training and everything. And if you have some closing remarks that you maybe would like to add, you're now more than welcome to.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to contact me or to get in touch, I'm on Instagram. It's Lisa_Gawthorne. The vegan deck that I've launched a few months ago is also on Instagram. It's just at the vegan deck. And my health and fitness book, Gone in 60 Minutes, is also available on Amazon. And yeah, just all I would like to say is, if anyone's been listening to this and I've inspired them, then that makes me the happiest vegan alive.
All right. So thank you so much for your time, Lisa, and thank you for the listeners for joining us. We will be back next week again. So take good care.
Thank you for joining. Be sure to check back next week for the next Hipther Talks, and subscribe on Amazon Music, Overcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and Pandora.